Hello and welcome to Supply Chain Africa News. My name is Wanda Bwanyama, and today we are still continuing with our Women in Supply Chain Leadership series. And today we are so excited that we have one Phoebe Kungu. She is currently the country director responsible for operations and support for International Rescue Committee. She has practiced supply chain for over 20 years. What a story! What a guest! Be ready. Welcome, Phoebe.
Thank you, Wandamwa. Thank you. Yeah, it's a joy and a pleasure to be here today. Yeah.
So who is Phoebe?
Well, like you said, I am currently responsible for operations and support as a deputy country director for IRC, that's International Rescue Committee in Zimbabwe. I just started last year, but I've been with IRC for the last 6 years. I'm also a mother of one son. And yeah, that's me.
You
Pretty
can say
simple.
hi to him.
Hi, Carlton.
Yeah. So where did you begin in supply chain?
Well, so I did not choose supply chain as a profession because at the time it wasn't very well known in Kenya. I started way back in 1994 in supply chain with International Committee of the Red Cross. I was recruited as an administrator. I was trained as an administrator. I was taken to a secretarial college by my mother because that's what she knew the most. And so when I started with ICRC, that's when I was introduced to the supply chain. At that time, I did not even fully grasp what supply chain was about. But in my role, I was able to work across different parts of then it was just called logistics. People called it different names. It was purchasing, logistics, and some it was supply chain. And so I started working in the import-export department. I worked in the operations department. I worked in the radio operations department, in the warehousing, transport, different parts of supply chain. And I really liked what I was doing. And that's when I thought to myself, you know what, I need to complement my qualifications with what I was learning. And so at that time, I started doing a bit more research about, what are the supply chain opportunities for, training courses and qualifications available in the country. And there weren't any. Yes, you could do short courses in stores management. You could do short courses in transport. But there wasn't a qualification that I really felt I needed for recognition, international recognition. And I didn't know how to start. And luckily, Pamela Steele.
My boss.
Yes. Got recruited at ICRC. And, we quickly touched base. She was my manager at some point. So I went to her. At the time I was doing procurement. That was in 1997. Please note, it was just through experience, right? Mm-hmm. And through internal training courses within the ICRC. ICRC were pretty gracious in giving us short courses in supply chain management, really purchasing, buying. So when I met Pamela Steele, I said, you know what? I'm looking to start a professional course that is internationally recognized. And she said, oh, you've come to the right person. And she just downloaded on me. She told me, well, there's this, I've just completed the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply. This is something I would want you to start. And I was so excited. And she showed me the ropes. She connected me. She showed me how to even register. So in 1999, so if you're talking of between 1994 and 1999, that's when I registered my first course in supply chain management. And I did my postgraduate diploma while I was still in ICRC. And then in 2003, I moved on from ICRC. By this time, I had grown within the logistics setup. And I was now the supply chain administrator, meaning I was the focal point of all the countries coming to the logistics center because it's a highly centralized operation supporting Horn East and Central Africa and the Great Lakes. And so, huge distribution setup in Nairobi and in Mombasa. And so when I left, I thought, you know what, I need to grow different, in a different context, different organization. And an opportunity came up with Oxfam GB. At the time, it was called Oxfam GB. It's what you know today as Oxfam International. So I joined Oxfam GB at the regional office as well, supporting 10 countries in the region. And it was a totally different organization than ICRC. So their mandate is different. And they had both development programs as well as emergency programs. And so when I joined, it was just me and my boss. And I was like, okay, I've come from a setup, yes, of more than 100 staff. And now here I am, just the two of us supporting 10 countries. I was like, so how does this work? And that's when I started realizing or learning about technical support, providing not hard logistics.
Actually, you explain that.
Yes.
How was the transition like? You're coming from an organization of more than 100 people. Here you are, the two of you. How was it?
It was a culture shock. First of all, it was, please note, I've been in ICRC for the entire supply chain experience. So I'm moving on to this organization. And in my head, I thought it would still be the same way of practicing supply chain. But then when I joined, I realized, okay, it's highly decentralized. Each country has their own supply chain setup. What we needed to do is to ensure that these countries have what they need to have for them to be able to deliver on operations. So this was a different thinking. And so when I joined, I honestly, it was a culture shock. It was a different mandate. And so obviously, because I am one person who likes learning new things, I was right where I needed to be. Yes, it was uncomfortable. I had some sleepless nights sometimes because I was wondering, how is this going to work? Honestly, shouldn't we be buying the maize and just shipping it there? But then it was like, no, local sourcing for local use. That is a different thinking than when you have a centralized warehouse where you have this number of trucks, you load 100 tons of commodities and you ship to that country. There's cross-border clearance, the headache of following the trucks to their destination, there's quality assurance and all these kind of things. But the logistics now that I was doing, it's more of management logistics. Yes, within the regional office, now we needed to set up what we call things like framework agreements, just to make sure that there's more efficiency in delivery of supply chain in those countries, right? So it was a regionalization kind of an approach. And again, at this time, Pamela still was working at the HQ office in Oxfam GB, and she was like, Phoebe, are you following me around? Are you stalking me?
Why?
I was like, I will stalk you. But, this was just a coincidence, and I think it was a pleasant coincidence. So I learned a lot of things around, how we partner with, in delivery of programs, we work with partners like local NGOs, how we build their competencies in supply chain, how we do category management, how we do, policies and procedures, how we build competencies and skills of staff. I learned about creating more visibility of supply chain operations, coming up with management decisions that are evidence-based. So all those things I was learning in Oxfam GB, which was amazing. I also was able to support emergency responses. After the tsunami in 2005, I went to Indonesia. I was in Banda Aceh, where we were doing shelter programs and water and sanitation programs in that location. I could see the devastation. I mean, it's intense. It was very intense. I was also able to respond to emergency response in Bangladesh as well after the Sida cyclone. Again, there was significant devastation, and I was also posted there for a period of time to support with rebuilding after the cyclone. So I was able to also visit different contexts and understand how supply chain should actually be agile enough to respond, to be homegrown supply chain, because each country has its own DNA and supply chain has to follow suit. Supply chain has to be aligned with what is happening in those contexts as well.
Yeah, when you say that every country has its own DNA, you think at some point we import certain solutions that have worked in one country to the other country?
Well, I think there needs to be flexibility. I can tell you that because in one country, you might find that they're grappling with things around security, access, infrastructure is damaged. So when you're doing supply chain in that country, you have to always be constantly thinking, are you shipping your consignment by road? When is the best time to ship by road? When are you going to do your operations? How does that align with your budgets and your resources availability? What type of skills do you need in that location? So when you start thinking about that, getting intimate about the country and how you're going to do supply chain, you just realize the concepts may be standard, but the approach and delivery is different from country to country. And that's the tricky part. And that's what really, to be honest, excites me, because it keeps your mind. I don't believe that in supply chain you have how do I say, you do things the same way every day. You'll always find something that is different on a daily basis. And that's what I like. You think you have a plan, but then you realize your plan is just no good.
Yeah.
It's not good anymore. You have to realign and rethink and recalibrate so that your supply chain can actually deliver.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are going to take a short commercial break. And when we come back, I want you to tell me, looking back before you joined supply chain, what could have someone told you about supply chain that you feel like you missed that point?